Welcome back to the Double Leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Jai Picks. The other half of the show, the Parlay. Joining me in to break down some UFC Jacksonville. Let's go. 14 fights to break down this week. We had 14 last week, but we lost 2, one of them being Gulov's fight, and he gets the nod on this card now. So headlined by Ilia Topuria and Josh Emmett in the featherweight division, co-main event, Amanda Hebos and Macy Barber. What do you think about the card overall?
Yeah, I was telling you, for the most part, man, I really like this card. Maybe not as many big names. There's some really good matchups. When the UFC goes on ABC, we've seen some cards with a lot of big finishes in the past. So I don't know. I think it's going to be fireworks. I think there's a lot of good betting opportunities and spots. I can't wait. It's an early card too, 11 a.m. Central start time. So can't beat that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of competitive fights on this card. I think there'll be even the ones that it's like minus 200, plus 200, somewhere around there. I think those are still competitive fights. Like there's no big blowouts. Obviously, the main event, pretty wide line. But, you know, there's always – Josh Emmett's been around a long time, so he's always game to step in there. But we'll go through them. We're going to give you our picks for the sake of the show, but these are not our bets. So moving forward, we're going to give our best breakdown for what we got right now. This is Monday, but if you want our bets at the end of the week, they'll be available in the link in the description. Get the Double Leg Premium. You can join the membership for the 30-day, or you can just get the plays that'll be available on Friday. But without any further ado, let's get into it with the main event. Josh Emmett coming in at plus 298 against Ilia Topuria, minus 298. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 185 for the over, minus 185 for the under. Odds are presented by BetOpenly.com. As always, it's peer-to-peer. So you're losing all the juice and you're getting all the money back there. Undefeated for Ilia Topuria. And in his last time out, I mean, that line on Bryce Mitchell, looking back on it, I wish he would have hammered it. But he had quite the performance his last time out. Josh Emmett obviously losing in the interim championship to the now contender for the undisputed belt, Yair Rodriguez. He was on quite a win streak there. Josh Emmett gets the loss there. Can he bounce back at 38 years old? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I hate the fact that he's 38 years old because he is a good fighter. I mean, he doesn't have many losses on his record. He's been super solid. The guy is strong as can be for that division. Hits like a truck, but against Yair, he took one of those body shots in the first round, and he just wasn't the same until after. I mean, going forward in that fight, he was not the same at all. And, I mean, Yair's a great striker. He's flashy. He's really creative, but I don't think he hits as hard as Topuria. Topuria is on another level as far as power, accuracy. I mean, I always watch the highlight of him hitting Jai Herbert with that right hand, just flatlined him. I mean, the impact alone just shifted Jai's whole body, like almost backwards, like did a 180. And the guy hits so hard. So I think Josh Emmett, seeing what Yair was able to do on the feet at times to him with the body work and the shots upstairs, I think Topuria is going to have the advantage on the feet, obviously with the power. And if it goes to the ground, I think Topuria is good enough. He's strong enough. You look at some of his fights, like against Yusuf Zalal, it's 5 takedowns, ton of control time. Taking Jai Herbert down. And I just think he'll be able to match Josh wherever it goes. And especially as this fight goes on, I think Topuria just gets stronger, starts finding those bigger shots even more. And towards the end of the fight, man, if Josh Emmett takes a couple of those body shots, drops his hands, I mean, it's just going to be bad news written all over it. I'm hoping for the Ilia Topuria knockout. I love Topuria. I think he's the future of the division. I think he's going to contend for some titles. So this would be a great feather in his cap if he gets this done.
Yeah, I love him too. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch because he's so aggressive on the feet with the combos, and he's got it with both hands too. Like you said, he rips the body hard with that left hook, and he kind of push uppercut it into the liver, knocked Damon Jackson out with that one, hit Jai Herbert with it a couple of times, and It's dangerous, man. I would not want to be standing in front of this guy if he's ripping off combos. And on the ground, he's got all the submission skills too. So, yeah, I don't think it's a good spot for Josh Emmett, considering he's 38 years old, coming off a loss that he didn't look good in at all. I mean, he looked on the feet, he looked like he couldn't get the range whatsoever, and then he tried to go for the takedown and get submitted. So it didn't look good. He was on like a run of like close fights where he was an underdog, but he came through, and so maybe it was like just destined to happen where he just couldn't come through as an underdog eventually, you know. And Yair Rodriguez got the win. But another thing is that damn weight cut for him. Like the last time his last weight cut looked like he was on death's door, and he may be able to like battle through it and not really show many signs of it. But he looked like a skeleton in there, man. Like it looks rough, and it kind of showed in the fight. He didn't look like he had a lot of speed or any kind of give on his punches either. So coming in here against Topuria, who's got big power, I don't like it. And just the direction of his career, he made his way to an interim belt, didn't get it. I mean, if he gets his win, that's quite the bounce back, but I just don't see it happening. I think Topuria's got him in every realm of the fight, but he just can't get caught with the right hand. If he avoids the right hand of Josh Emmett, I think he cruises to a win and gets the stoppage, probably round 2, I would think.
Yeah, I think if you're on Josh Emmett, it's you got to play the KO prop. Actually, I mean, with the line this wide, you could play his money line, but I think there's going to be value on the KO prop if you think he's going to win, because I don't see a world where he outstrikes him for 5 rounds and wins on the scorecards. I don't see him out wrestling him for 5 rounds. I think he has to finish Ilia Topuria if he wants to get this done. The one other thing that I worry about him with, being that old now, look at his last fight against Yair. He took some damage. The fight before that, Calvin Kattar landed 130 significant strikes on him. 2 fights before that, Shane Burgos landed 130 on him. So he's racking up some damage to him. Whether he's getting, he's not getting knocked out by some of those guys, but that damage is accumulating. And once you get closer to 40 and you start fighting these younger killers that hit as hard as Topuria, man, it's just that chin's going to go at some point. It's got to.
Yeah, he is pretty hittable. I will say that. And it's not looking good for him. I'm hoping we can see some Topuria smash. That'd be fun. Keep moving to the co-main event. Amanda Hebos coming in at -158 against Macy Barber coming in at +158. Over under 2.5 rounds. -225 for the over, +225 for the under. Amanda Hebos coming in here after a pretty big win in her last time out against Viviane Araujo. And then before that, she lost to Kaylin Chikagan. And she was at 125 when she was at 115, and then she moved up to 125 after her fight with Verna Jandiroba, which she got a win there. So her first fight in flyweight in this run, she took a loss, but then she got back on track against Araujo. And then for Macy Barber, she's on a 4-fight win streak, but 2 of those are pretty close to decisions that may not have gone her way. Had like some other judges taking it another place, but her last time out against Andrea Lee, personally, I was in attendance there, and it's a little bit of a different view, but I thought Andrea Lee probably got the win. And then you could go back to the Miranda Maverick fight in 2021, and a lot of people think Miranda Maverick won that one. So it could be a different story coming in here for Macy Barber, but nonetheless, she comes in as an underdog. Who you leaning on this one?
Yeah, so for Macy Barber, it's kind of the same for both fighters, but for Macy, 2 split decisions in her last 4, 2 decisions. She's yet to show me like that one win where it just says, okay, now Macy's legit. She's putting it all together. She's a great fighter. Like, I've yet to see that out of her. I thought she lost the Andrea Lee fight from at home. You said you were there. It looked suspect at home. I was almost shocked when they raised Macy Barber's hand. I never really went back and watched it fully to try to score it myself, but it just looked like Lee had gotten the better of her in at least 2 rounds. But I mean, you're beating Jessica I, Montana De La Rosa, and Miranda Maverick by split decision. You're not going out there and just dominating girls or getting these big finishes. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, Amanda Hebos is going to be a tough customer. She does have some losses, but if you look at her losses, it's Caitlin Chukagian and Madrina Rodriguez. So she's beaten Verna Jandiroba. So if she's beaten Jandiroba, I don't see Macy coming out here and grappling the hell out of Hebos by any means. I just think anywhere this fight goes, Hebos might be a slightly more polished fighter, in my opinion. She's got good volume on the feet. Her striking defense is actually really good. She's only getting hit with 2.65 significant strikes per minute, which is, 69% striking defense. Averages over 2 takedowns, 88% takedown defense. Like, she's just as solid as they come. And like I said, the losses are to really good fighters. So I think she might just be a little bit too much to handle for Macy. But Macy is, getting a little bit better in the striking each time out. I just don't know if she's quite there yet. So my prediction is going to be Amanda Hebos here.
Yeah, I would probably tend to lean that way, but it just seems like Macy Barber's got ways to make it a close fight. And she's got ways to get the judges to give her the fight. So
she's aggressive. That aggression looks good. At times.
Yeah, she moves forward. She'll also go to the cage control. So even if she can't get Hebos down, she can just hold her up against the cage. Because I do think she might have a little bit of a strength advantage coming into this one. I think Hebos is probably the better grappler as far as submission skills go, and just overall threats on the ground. But in the size category, I think Macy Barber might be a little bit better because Hebos, flirted with 115 for a little bit. So yeah, I think this is as greasy as it gets. Going into a Macy Barber fight that it's probably going to go to decision, and you might get screwed on the judges. So do you want to be on Macy Barber's side or not? And I probably wouldn't be able to lay the chalk on Hebos at this point. But at the same time, I'm not chomping at the bit to be on Macy Barber's side as an underdog, because I do think she probably loses, but it's just not a great one that I wouldn't want to get too invested in it personally. But for the sake of the show, I'll take Amanda Hebos.
You got to see if Chris Lee's judging this one, because if he is, he likes those. He likes those popular fighters. So Macy Barber might be the pick if you can get some kind of Chris Lee in there. Some of those judges who, think differently than us, I guess. So
yeah, check out the judging panel before you look at that one. Unfortunately, that's probably a common thing that's going to have to take place going forward. Heavyweight bout, Justin Taffa coming in at minus 168 against the debuting Austin Lane, plus 168 for him. Over under 1.5 rounds, plus 190 for the over, minus 190 for the under. Austin Lane, 35 years old, making his debut as a heavyweight, 6'6", 80-inch reach. So 6 inches in reach advantage for Lane and a 6-inch height advantage for Lane. Coming in here 5-0 in his last 5. Justin Taffa coming off the big knockout win in Perth, Australia against Parker Porter. And he's on a nice little 2-win streak for him, both by knockout in the first round. So maybe some momentum for him. But Austin Lane, you made your video today on it. ex-NFL guy, and pretty athletic, but obviously 35 years old. Probably needs to go at it if he's going to do it. What are you thinking?
It's really tough for me to try to get a read on this fight because, you look at Taffa, knocks out Parker Porter. He's obviously a powerful striker. But Austin Lane's 6'6", 245 with an 80-inch reach. That's a massive, massive human being. And he's athletic too. He played in the NFL, defensive end. He's explosive. And Taffa kind of gets caught standing flat-footed at times. And I worry that Austin Lane, although probably not the as technical of a striker as Taffa is, could just overwhelm him with the athleticism and the strength, get him down, just wear him out. And then I guess we'll see whose cardio and whose gas tank holds up better. But right now, I just can't get a great read on this fight because I could also see Austin Lane getting a little excited and rushing in and getting clipped by Justin Taffa too. You would think that Justin Taffa has more experience in mixed martial arts, but I think it's Austin Lane who's 12-3 and Taffa is 6-3. So a little experience edge in the cage, not this level, but in the cage to Austin Lane. So he's been around a little bit. I just keep going back to that size, man. That's just going to be a huge, huge advantage for Austin Lane in a lot of these fights. Justin Taffa is 6 foot tall, the 74-inch reach. And you got Austin Lane, who is 6'6", with an 80-inch reach. So even if Justin Taffa wants to stand and strike with him, it might be a little harder to close that distance and reach out and touch him, especially with Lane's movement. Like, you watch him, and he is pretty in and out, and he circles out, and you can just tell he's an athlete with good footwork and movement. So it does scare me picking a side here. I want to lean with Taffa, but this could be one where you pick a guy and you look like an absolute idiot. So yeah, I am going to go with Justin Taffa just because of the UFC level experience. And Lane, you know, not really fighting too high of level. He's been knocked out by Greg Hardy on Dana White's Contender Series. That scares me off a little bit. So I'm just going to stick with the UFC guy and Justin Taffa here. But it's one of those fights that's going to be tough to bet on.
Yeah, I look at it like Taffa's probably the more polished striker. But his one of his losses in the UFC is to Jared Vanderaa, and that's Jared Vanderaa's only win in the UFC. Jared Vanderaa is 6'4", so a similar frame to Austin Lane. Austin Lane probably a little bit more athletic and still taller and longer than Jared Vanderaa. But not a good look there. If you're like betting on Justin Taffa to see that his loss is to Jared Vanderaa, but back-to-back knockouts for him against guys that are relatively his size. So if he connects, like, he's got real power. So I think he's more polished striker, but it's going to be a little bit tougher to get him like inside and touch that chin for him. But considering this is heavyweights, I think he'll probably be able to do it. Like, at some point, I think he'll be able to land it. He is fairly durable. He's been knocked out once, Justin Taffa, that is. So if he can just not get taken down and just, stay the course and look for his shots, I think he could eventually find the chin. Lane's been knocked out 3 times, all in the first round, by Greg Hardy, Frank Tate, who was 5-5 at the time, and Vernon Lewis, who was 7-4 at the time. So the chin can be cracked, and an ex-NFL player means you got a lot of miles on that dome piece. I can tell you that. So I don't expect the chin to get any better or any fresher, considering he hasn't been in the UFC. So I'm going to go with Justin Taffa, but he's just got to avoid the takedowns. And
I am interested to see like what will happen if Lane does get the fight to the ground, because using that size and strength, you would think he can control Taffa. I mean, if Justin Taffa is anything like Junior was in his last fight, he's going to have trouble getting up off his back. So that's another thing too. We could be expecting big fireworks and stuff, but I could also see this fight playing out with Lane getting a takedown and just laying on him, doing some work here and there. So it's just so hard to tell what's going to happen in this one.
Yeah, that's the thing that would scare me, if he gets taken down and probably gasses out if he gets taken down and has to wrestle. But
right.
Featherweight bout, David Onama, Gabriel Santos, -212 for Santos, +212 for Onama, over under 2.5 rounds, +135 for the over, -135 for the under. Gabriel Santos picking up his first loss in his last time out, and which was a close fight against Lerone Murphy. He looked pretty dang good in that one, because Lerone Murphy is not an easy debut, and he went toe-to-toe. It was a split decision. I mean, a lot of people thought that was some hometown cooking there in London for the boy Lerone Murphy, but either way, he got the loss. And David Onama, it's going to be his first fight back without his head coach, James Krause, which was his last time out was against Nate Landwehr in August, and that was one of the craziest fights I've ever seen. And he lost that one by a majority decision. Damn near had him knocked out in the first round. Probably did have him knocked out, and then brought him back to life. And things got wild after that. But I think both guys are talented. Santos, I mean, the price on Santos is like, it's a little tough. Like, considering David Onama, the frame on him is really good. 5'11", 74-inch reach for a featherweight. He's athletic. He's fast. You just got to question the cardio, and the skills might still be a little bit raw. But Gabriel Santos looks like super skilled. And I mean, that debut was a high-level fight. And I would assume that he can do similar things to Lerone Murphy and probably get the better of him. But at -212, that's a tough one. Tough one to buy. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a little shocked he's that big of a favorite coming off of his UFC debut loss against a guy who does have wins in the UFC. over Gabriel Benitez and Garrett Armfield, 2 finishes too. So you know that Onama's got finishing ability. He can do it by submission. He can do it by KO. I think that cardio and gas tank is just what that's why the line is this way, because we saw Gabriel Santos take Murphy and take him down a handful of times, do some good work on the ground, control him, strike with him. And he didn't really show any signs of completely gassing out. And I'm pretty sure it was short notice too, right? For him?
Yeah, somewhat. I
So
think
like
it's
a
like
couple weeks or something.
2 or 3 weeks, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so I mean, he showed that he's well rounded. He can go the full duration of the fight. And Onama, man, that that fight against Landwehr was one of the best fights I've ever watched. Well, I was so hyped watching that. But
Yeah.
he was so tired, and he does get hit too when he gets tired. His arms go down, his chin's wide open. He's susceptible to the takedowns, and I think a guy like Santos, if he gets on top of you while you're tired, can find a lot of finishes. So that does scare me. But again, man, Onama is super, super dangerous in the first couple of rounds of a fight. I don't think he should be plus 210. I really don't. I think this is closer to not quite a pick 'em. Maybe you get minus 150 for Gabriel Santos, but as it's creeped up, it's just insane to me how big of a favorite he's become.
Yeah.
For the pick, I think Gabriel Santos should win, but I will not be at all surprised if David Onama has fixed some things, gotten his cardio in check a little bit better, and is able to win a couple rounds here.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder, like, if Santos like won that fight, what would this price be? Like, because
Yeah.
that kind of indicates like the books probably thought he won, or at least it was close enough to where they think he's won. But I've been looking at like David Onama's Instagram, and there's like no updates at all. So I'm like, what? I mean, he announced his fight against Santos, but like there's no updates on anything. So I don't know what's going on with him, where he's at. But there's a lot of question marks there too. It's like what, because that was kind of the fight that like may have sparked the whole Kraus betting scandal. Like, because
Right.
that's the story. How the story goes, I think, is like they had money on Onama and he lost to Nate as a pretty sizable favorite. But he's coming back here. I don't know where he's at. But he's so talented, and he's down to scrap always. So this is probably gonna be a really good fun fight. But yeah, just with the unknowns, I'm gonna go with Santos for the pick. Don't love the price at all. I don't love the price at all because of the ceiling of Onama is definitely there, and Santos is still pretty green. Like he had a good first fight, but let's see if he can replicate it moving forward.
Yeah.
Middleweight bout, Brendan Allen and Bruno Silva, plus 158 for Silva, minus 158 for Allen, over under 1.5 rounds, minus 140 for the over, plus 140 for the under. Brendan Allen on quite a little win streak for him. He's won 4 in a row. The last time he was out, he came through as an underdog against Andre Muniz, which turned into the main event that night because Spann and Krylov couldn't go. So that was the main event. And what a turnout that was, because it looked like Andre Muniz was going to be the jiu-jitsu guy in that one, and then he decided to like strike, and then Brendan Allen takes him down and submits him. So a very interesting way for that one to play out. But Muniz, Jocko, Malkoon, and Sam Alvey are his 4 wins over those 4. And then the knockout loss to Chris Curtis. That was his last loss. And for Bruno Silva, he got a big comeback knockout win after taking 2 losses to Brad Tavares. That was April 22nd in the first round. Maybe a questionable stoppage. I remember that one, still a little fresh in the memory. But either way, 4-2 in the UFC. I mean, he hasn't looked bad. His only losses are to Alex Pereira, and the one bad loss was to Gerald, and he didn't look good in that one at all. I think he was just so scared of getting submitted.
Right.
That's how he loses, man. He's been submitted 6 times in his career, but he's got 23 knockouts or something like that. You got to add up all these numbers, but he's got a ton of knockouts. And I have a hard time believing in Brendan Allen's chin like that much, because you look at the guys like over his winning streak here. Alvey, not exactly like big hammers on the feet at that stage of his career. Malkoon, absolutely nothing on the feet. Jocko couldn't knock out what's his nuts, Amidovsky. And Andre Muniz like decided to strike. Like he's a jiu-jitsu guy and he just decided to strike. So you go back to the last time he's actually fought a guy with some hands, and it's Chris Curtis, and he got knocked out. So I'm like, I mean, I like Brendan Allen, but I also know Bruno Silva's got fucking stones in his hands. Like I don't think many people can take those shots. And he went toe to toe with Alex Pereira. I mean, he's got a chin of his own. Got cracked by Gerald after that, but that's the only way he loses is getting submitted. And yeah, I just got a feeling like Bruno Silva at plus money is always like a good bet. You know what I'm saying? What do you think?
Oh, for sure. I mean, he showed it in his last fight against Brad Tavares. But yeah, with Bruno, first of all, this is great matchmaking by the UFC. You got Bruno Silva, who can hit. You alluded to it. He's got power in his hands. Good takedown defense at 71% so far in the UFC. And he's going to want to knock Brendan Allen out. He's going to want to stay on the feet and use that boxing. Whereas Brendan Allen showed in his last fight, he can strike a little bit. He can also take you down and submit you. And that's probably where he wants to fight. So it's going to be the battle of who can implement their game plan. But at plus money, man, I think Bruno Silva is phenomenal value here because you alluded to it as well on Brendan Allen's record. Loses to Chris Curtis by knockout, loses to Sean Strickland by knockout. His other fights, I mean, Soriano got tired after a round or two. He didn't really have much power left. Sam Alvey, Jacob Malkoon, who's wanting to wrestle, Jotko, like you said, man, can't knock anybody out. So he's not really fighting these guys who will stand in the pocket and pose a threat of knocking him out. So he's got a big one in front of him here in Silva. I'm not going to be the least bit surprised if Silva finds the knockout, and I'm going to pick him to win this week, especially at plus money. He'll definitely be on my card.
Yeah, I just if I'm Brendan Allen, like just go for the takedowns, bro. Like
yeah, you have to.
I just don't even mess around because I mean he was looking pretty good on the feet against Muniz, but you know that's Muniz. Like that's not Bruno Silva.
Yeah.
And he's got knocked out by Curtis and Strickland. So those guys got some pretty good hands. Strickland not like the most power, but that was it was what 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Silva's probably the play. But you know, an Allen by sub bet is not always the worst thing because he's got some good jiu-jitsu and Silva's he hasn't been subbed. He's only been subbed once in the UFC, and that was after he got his bell rung. So it looks like when he got in the UFC, if guys were trying to grapple with him, like the fight against Wellington Turman, like he was able to fight that off and battle through it. Like so, I'm sure he's been working on it enough to where like he can't just get taken down and get subbed right away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I like that he went 3 rounds with Alex Pereira and not get knocked out there. Like that shows you ate 108 strikes from Alex and didn't go down and get knocked out. Like that's pretty impressive at the end of the day. Scored a few takedowns on him too. So
it is pretty nuts. Yeah. I'll go Silva for the pick as well.
Like it.
A welterweight bout here. Neil Magny coming in at minus 152. Phil Rowe coming in at plus 152. Over under 2.5 rounds. Minus 155 for the over. Plus 155 for the under. Phil Rowe coming in 32 years old for Phil Rowe. 35 years old for Neil Magny. Both guys are like mirror image of each other. 6'3", 80-inch reach. A half-inch reach advantage for Phil Rowe. So make sure you take that half inch into account because it could play a big role in this one. But I gotta say, I'm kind of torn on this one because you got like the guy that's been there for a while, forever, Neil Magny, and he's so seasoned, but the upside is like there's very little upside for him because like you know what he is, and he's probably not gonna knock you out with big punches. He's probably not gonna like submit you with some crazy stuff. Like he's just the base fighter. Like if you made a fighter to last that long, 30 fights in the UFC, you'd probably make that.
Yeah.
And he's got the frame that is always tough to deal with, but Phil Rowe has a good frame too, and maybe more upside on Phil Rowe's in Phil Rowe's corner because he has the finishing ability. He's never won a fight by decision. But the level of competition is still, I question it. Like the last fight against Nico Price, he nearly got finished and then came back and got or finished Nico Price. And then the other wins in the UFC, Jason Witt has 0 chin, and it took him 2 rounds to knock him out. And then Orion Kosi, who got cut too. So 2 guys that got cut, and then Nico Price, who had like bad knee surgery before that. And look, he had fought with knee sleeves. So I'm like, what version of Nico Price is that he's fighting? Yeah. And he still went 3 rounds with him. But like you watch him fight, he looks like super talented. But he is 32 years old. So I'm like, is this the prime of his career? Is he still getting better? What's the deal with him? But Neil Magny is the piece that we all know pretty well at this point. And in this spot, I think the experience of Neil Magny is probably going to be able to be enough like to win the fight, because the fight IQ will be there. I just think as long as he doesn't get finished, I think he wins. What do you think?
Yeah, Magni just can't get knocked out. He hasn't been knocked out in 5 years, too. So, and he's fought guys like Shavkat, who hit hard, Gilbert Burns, who hit hard. Although those guys, implemented their grappling and got it to the ground and found the sub. I don't see Phil Rowe doing that in the least bit. Like I can't. I think that Phil Rowe is going to have to get a knockout, because if you don't, Neil Magny's going to be in your face the whole time. He's going to land some shots. He's going to rack up points. And if he gets you to the ground, he's super, super underrated on the ground. Maybe he's not going to go out there and get these crazy submissions, but he's going to ride you until you get tired. And he's going to implement that ground game that has been solid against high level fighters for a long time. Yeah, I know like Gilbert Burns subbed him and Shavkat subbed him. But I mean, at the end of the day, Philip Rowe is nowhere near either of those guys, in my opinion. Neil Magny, how many fights does he even have in the UFC? It's a load of fights, and he's got a ton of wins. He's seen every single style there possibly is to fight. I don't know. I don't want to say this is too soon for Phil Rowe, because he just fought Nico Price, who's a great fighter, and knocked him out in the 3rd. But if he gets a little bit tired in this fight, Magny's going to start doing what he wants. Magny's going to get the fight to the ground. And from there, I just don't see Phil Rowe having a great shot as the fight goes on. So if you're Phil, go get it done in the first round and a half. If not, I can see Magny start taking over like he does in the past. So my pick, I'm gonna go with Neil Magny here. I can see this kind of being a little trappy line, like making you think the guy who just got finished by Gilbert, by Shavkat not long ago, is minus 150. It looks like tremendous value on Phil Rowe. But Magny's a veteran, and he's a pretty good veteran at that. So I think Magny could be the play.
Yeah, he's never a sexy pick, but
no,
he's won 20 fights in the UFC. It's going to be his 30th going in here. So 30th anniversary of the UFC, 30th win, or not, or 30th fight, 21st win for Neil Magny. I'm going to go with him as well.
I think you could play Phil Rowe knockout prop as a little hedge, though, and be fine.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. Although, I mean, he's got some decent submissions too, and Magny's been getting submitted as of recently, but maybe not at that high level.
I was gonna say, yeah, I just think the level. I just don't know if he could go out there and do that to a Magny, but we'll see. It's a fun fight,
unless it was a club and sub. Could be
right.
That. Could be that. So, welterweight bout, Randy Brown coming in at minus 225 against Wellington Turman, plus 225 for Wellington Turman, over under 2.5 rounds, plus 100 for the over, plus 100 for the under. Randy Brown had the win streak, and it got snapped. He got dumped on his head by Jack Della Maddalena in Perth, Australia, and we're coming into this one looking to bounce back. He's a favorite once again. He was a favorite in most of his, or all 4 of his last his win streak that he went on. Mm-hmm. And Wellington Turman coming in here off the loss of Petrosky at UFC 281. And then 2 fights before that were both wins, Serkinov and Sam Alvey. So, I mean, it's been a little bit of an interesting run for Wellington Turman, 3-4 in the UFC. The wins aren't anything crazy, but the losses are like mid-level. I mean, he's losing to like Petrosky, Silva, Andrew Sanchez, Carl Robertson. So, yeah, I mean, he looks like a probably middle of the pack welterweight, or he wasn't at middleweight. He's moving down to 170 in this one. But for the most part, he looked like middle of the pack at middleweight. I don't know if he'll be able to like do that much better at welterweight. Like Randy Brown's a pretty big welterweight too. Like the distance is going to be tough to mess with. And Randy's got some good submission skills, but he can be chinny at sometimes. But I don't think Wellington Turman is going to be able to like take advantage of that. That's probably why the line is a little bit wide. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that's exactly why the line's that wide. You look at Randy's losses, and he's getting knocked out by dudes. Vicente Luque, Nico Price, Jack Della Maddalena. So, I mean, to me at least, Wellington Turman doesn't hold that power or that threat that some of those guys he's lost to does. I think if Turman wants to win, he's got to get on his back. He's got to look for submissions, rack up control time, do something. But at the same time, that's way easier said than done against a guy like Randy Brown, who's long, good submissions himself, like you said, and on the feet with the jab and the length. It's going to be hard to close the distance in the first place to get anywhere close to him, to get your hands locked. So, yeah, I just see Randy Brown running away with this thing, especially on the feet. Wellington Turman, even when he's on the feet, doesn't have great volume, whereas Randy Brown does. Randy Brown can be a little bit flashy at times too. And defensively, he's got a solid strike defense. So I don't see Wellington coming out here and putting it on him by any means. So yeah, I think Randy Brown does win this fight. I'm not 100% confident to pay that price by any means, but I think he does get it done here. I don't think Wellington Turman's a good enough striker to get him.
Yeah, one thing to help you believe in Wellington Turman, though, he's been working with Alex Pereira's coach because they train at Glover Teixeira's gym together. So maybe he's picked up a little stuff from Alex Pereira and his coach. Maybe the hands are a little bit better. I mean, he's going down 170.
Gonna have to be.
Maybe he's got a little bit more pop in his step at 170. But yeah, for the pick, I'm going to go with Randy Brown. Lightweight bout here. Mateusz Trebek coming in at minus 130 against Loik Rajabov coming in at plus 130. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 165 for the over, plus 165 for the under. Mateusz Trebek 17-1. Loik Rajabov 17-4-1. It's short notice debut for Loik Rajabov's last time out. Got a win against Esteban Hebos. And quite the fight that one turned out to be because he kind of gassed a little bit. I mean, it was pretty short notice. So you kind of expected him to not have the best cardio going into that one. But he was shooting some panic takedowns for his life. And he was hitting them with some good shots too. But he had to hold on for dear life at the end and ended up getting the win there. But for Rebecca, the debut against Nick Fiore, who actually just got cut after that, but he came in as a huge favorite, but he was winging left hands and he just couldn't put Nick Fiore out of there, even though Nick Fiore is like the human punching bag of the UFC because Chase Hooper pieced him up, which was nuts. But so it's not exactly like that impressive at this point. I mean, I don't know. But Rebecca, pretty dang good. I mean, he's only got one loss. He's got a bunch of finishes on his record. He's only won 3 fights by decision, so he's usually getting people out of there. He was able to stay the course in his debut and get a win there, but it's a pretty even matchup as far as like styles go. You know, like both guys will probably go for some takedowns. Both guys got some decent hands. Yeah, pretty even. What are you thinking?
I think it's even as well. You look at Fiore almost getting put out by Chase Hooper, and that's something that Rebecca didn't do either. So Rebecca too, though, you watch a couple of his previous fights and that fight against Fiore, the guy kind of got a little tired, and he does have a pace and an output that would gas a lot of people. But I mean, you look at Loik Rajabov landed 11 takedowns in his debut, so he's going to be right there with him trying to do the same exact thing. It's all going to come down to, I think, who can last longer with their cardio and their gas tank. Because if one starts fading, I think the other one's just going to start dominating because they both have those styles to where they want to get you down to the ground, do some damage, control you, and just wear you down. So it's really hard to figure out which guy is going to be able to do that because they haven't had many fights at this level in the UFC. I'm kind of leaning with Loik, though. He seems like he was a little fresher later in the fight. He was a little more aggressive still, and he just changed his name to the Tajik Tank. So something's got to give him that nickname. Maybe he's been working to earn that nickname or something. But I just see him. I see him fresher later in the fight, and I think that's what it's going to come down to here. But at the end of the day, man, this is a coin flip for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go with Rebecca. I don't love it though. I don't love it. I might flip throughout the week, but my initial lean is Rebecca just because he's got like a little bit more finishing ability with the hands on the feet. And then I just think overall like he's a little bit sharper, like a little bit sharper as far as strength goes on the takedowns. He's got the submission skills. Loic will like take you down and sit there for a while sometimes. Like Rebecca's usually working towards some kind of finish or some kind of submission. So it's gonna be hard to finish Loic though. He's never been finished, so might have to go all 3 rounds. And yeah, maybe Loic can take over later, but I would expect him to have better cardio going into this one too. So for the sake of the show, I'll go with Rebecca. But yeah, it's a pretty close to a toss up there. Another one that's close to a toss-up, Tabitha Ricci coming in at -115. Jillian Robertson +115. Over under 2.5 rounds, -200 for the over, +200 for the under. A strawweight bout here. Tabitha Ricci 4-1 in her last 5. Jillian Robertson 3-2 in the last 5. And she has gotten a submission win over Tabitha Ricci's teammate her last time out, Pierre Rodriguez. We were both in attendance for that one at UFC Kansas City. She got it in the second round, arm bar. Very beautiful. I mean, she took her down, was on heavy on top for a while, stayed patient. 40 seconds left in the round, and she goes for the arm bar and gets it. Some people, mainly just Pierre Rodriguez, would say she didn't tap, but either way, she got the win. And it looked like could have been inevitable eventually because she was having some good top pressure the entire fight. But in this one, this is probably going to be one that's like the most controversial or one of the most controversial fights of the week. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's tough. I want to lean with Jillian, and there was a lot of questions going into her last fight about how she was going to look cutting down a weight class, and she was big in that fight, and it played into her advantage, and she looked solid. Like she didn't have any gas tank issues. The weight cut didn't seem to just absolutely kill her by any means. Like she looked pretty healthy in there, and if that's the case again, I think she's obviously going to have a good size advantage over Ricci, who's 5'1", whereas Jillian's 5'5". I think if the fight goes to the ground with Jillian on top, it's going to play into her advantage, being stronger, having that submission game she does. I think she's she's the submission leader for all women's MMA in the UFC. I don't know if that's correct, but I know she's up there. I know she holds some kind of records.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's just got a load of fights on her record for only being 26 years old, 27 years old. So she's constantly getting better. She's got a ton of experience. Whereas Tabitha only has, 4 or 5 fights in the UFC, and it's not against super, super high level competition yet. If it stays on the feet, Tabitha should be the one leading the dance, you would think, if she can close that distance. I think she'll be sharper and more technical. But if it goes to the ground and Jillian's on top, man, she's just a wizard. It's just another level. And Tabitha's good down there too. So it could just be one of those fights where it could go to the judges' scorecard and it could be interesting. Do you score the striking and damage and volume for Tabitha, or do you score the ground control, submission attempts type thing for Jillian if it goes there? Super dicey fight. They've actually been chirping a little on Twitter too and Instagram, with I saw Tabitha. She's been posting a lot of videos of her doing these like CrossFit workouts and not really posting any training footage. Whereas Jillian's posting, sparring and her rolling with different fighters. And basically it was shouting out that we don't train CrossFit for fights over here and, kind of going back and forth with her. So should be fun in that aspect. A little, I don't want to say bad blood, but a little chirping going on. Similar styles when they want to be. And for me, I'm going to stick with our girl Jillian, who cashed the free play. We were in attendance. I have to. It's probably a biased pick, but I like that size advantage, and I like her strength. And if this fight hits the ground, which at some point I think it might, she should have just a slight advantage.
I'm interested to see how Tabitha Ricci plays this one. Like,
Yeah.
does she go to the ground with Jillian Robertson? Because we all know, I mean, the blueprint to beat Jillian Robertson has been out there. Like, don't go to the ground with her. Keep your distance. Like, just strike with her and stuff the takedowns. If you can do that, you should be able to beat her by decision pretty easily. But that was at 125, and now she's down to 115. So it's going to be a lot tougher for fighters to do that to her, considering she'll be relatively the bigger girl in there. She's going to be 4 inches taller than Tabitha here. So I look at Tabitha's wins in the UFC. It's like Jessica Penne, at this point in Penne's career, she's like not really anything, like there's not much there. Maria Oliveira just got cut. There's nothing much there. And then the win over Polyana Viana, I mean, it looks decent. Like Polyana Viana's got good submission skills, and Ricci was able to stay safe and not get submitted. She was able to go to the ground with her and not get submitted. So that probably gives me a little bit of some belief in Tabitha Ricci that she's able to survive on the ground with Jillian Robertson. But, a lot of people don't go to the ground with Jillian Robertson and survive. So, yeah, it is kind of probably properly priced. I think Ricci should probably be a little bit of a favorite, but not too much. And I was telling you earlier, I mean, look at this over under. Minus 200 for the over, plus 200 for the under. Jillian Robertson, if she wins, she usually wins by submission. Like she only has 2 wins by decision out of her 12. So, I mean, she doesn't really win unless she gets it done inside the distance, and she's always looking for that. So, Can she submit Tabitha Ricci? I mean, they're basically telling you like she's not going to submit her. So that tells me that Tabitha Ricci probably wins if it goes to decision. If you like Jillian Robertson, maybe the better juice is on the under 2.5 because she probably gets it done inside the distance. So yeah, for the sake of the show, I'm gonna go with Jillian Robertson because I believe that she can get it done, but will she? Probably, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I think
it is.
It's properly priced. I don't see too much value on either side. So yeah, for the sake of show, I'll go with Jillian just because she's our girl. Jagajuma Gulov coming in here at minus 160 against the debuting Joshua Van. Plus 160 for Van in the flyweight division. Touched on it earlier, but Jagish was supposed to fight the UFC Vegas 75 2 days ago, and now he's going to be fighting on the UFC Jacksonville card here. 1-4 in his last 5 for Jagish and 5-0 for Joshua Van. Coming in here against a guy who's probably chopping at the bit to get in the octagon because he's had the Zaddy the Batty haircut for how long has he had it for? But like a month and a half now, and he's been waiting to get it used with those judges. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, Joshua Van didn't like jump off the board as far as like when I was watching him on tape. Some pretty good finishing abilities on the feet, and as of recently getting it done with some submissions, a calf slicer on his record back in May of 2022. His last fight was December of 2022. He was scheduled to fight on the Contender Series this August, and then they're like needed to bring him in to fight Jalgis because they needed to get Jalgis a fight. So he's skipping that, and he's taking on Jalgis here. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, it is tough because, I mean, Jalgis gets a bad rap because of his record in the UFC. But, I mean, you look at it and all the split decision losses. I thought he beat Charles Johnson. I watched that fight twice this past week. I thought he beat Charles. He landed some really good shots to the leg with the calf kicks. Landed some shots, too. For being the shorter fighter, he's pretty aggressive, and his striking's not bad. Like, he'll hit you, maybe not the hardest, but he will find the chin at some point. He's pretty damn tough too. I mean, he's got knocked out by Manel Kopp, but other than that, these guys are having to go to decision with him. And dare I say, he's getting robbed a little bit at times. Jeff Molina was a great striker while he was in the UFC, and he went split decision with him as well. And, I keep going back to that Charles fight. He had everything against him there. The length, the reach. Charles Johnson at that point, a lot of people thought was, this up and coming savage. And I thought Jalgas beat him. So he's getting set up for a win here. Or he should be. He should be able to get a win finally here. I think he's a better fighter than his record leads on. Everywhere too. I mean, the guy's not like weak anywhere. He can strike with you a little bit. The takedown defense on the ground, he'll get back up. So yeah, in this fight here, he's been chomping at the bit to get in there. That's the only thing that does kind of concern me is maybe he's had to go through these different training camps too often recently, try to cut this weight a little bit too often. So yeah, that would be the one thing to concern me. But I think Jalgas finally gets it done here.
Yeah, I would lean that way too.
You would think.
I would think, yeah. I mean, Joshua Van's 21 years old, so he's still fairly green. And I just think the skills that Jalgas has at this point in his career is probably just going to be too much. I mean, he's 34 years old. He's been around for a long time. He's fought in, Fight Nights Global. He's fought in the UFC a lot. And he's got a lot of experience. I mean, he beat Tyson Nam in Fight Nights Global, beat Tajir Ulanbekov in Fight Nights Global. And even though a lot of people think that he didn't win that fight or he lost, or he won a split decision against Ali Bahatinov, and that was a split decision win. So maybe the karma came back around, and that's why he's not getting the dross to these judges. But either way, I think the skills will be too much for him, for Joshua Van at this stage in his career. Maybe down the road he could be a little bit better. He showed a lot of talent as far as what I've seen on film, but I think Zuma Gulov should be able to get it done. Oh, this one.
Oh, my God.
Very excited for this one. Trevor Peek and Chepe Morasko. Plus 162 for Chepe, minus 162 for Trevor Peek. 8-0 for Trevor Peek. And he's looking like he could be not like a big star, but the dude is just fun to watch. Over under 1.5 rounds, plus 200 for the over, minus 200 for the under 1.5. So they are expecting big violence in this one, and I think they're going to get it. 5-0 in Chepe's last 5 as well. If you don't know who Chepe Morasko is, this guy fights a similar style to Trevor Peek. I think he's way more skilled than Trevor.
More technical.
Way more technical. Probably a lot better grappling than Trevor Peek would. He's got wins over Pat Sabatini, a win over Yusuf Zalal. His only losses are to UFC level guys, and not even low level UFC guys, like Sean Soriano, Steve Garcia, Joe Anderson Brito, Bryce Mitchell, Gregor Gillespie, and this one guy that never did make it to the UFC, Frank. I'm not even going to try. Buenafuente. But those are his 6 losses. 5 of those are UFC guys. So he's been fighting good competition for a long time. And the stoppage against Steve Garcia, if you go back and watch it, that was a terrible stoppage, really bad. So it shows up as a knockout loss, but was it really? Not really. But yeah, I think he's going to be way more skilled, but he is if you got to face the facts, he is undersized too. He's 5'6", 69.5-inch reach. He's probably got a lot of miles on the chin as well, being 30 years old, and just the way that he fights. He's got that many fights under his belt. 5'9" for Trevor Peek. So he's going to be a little bit bigger. I think he's probably going to be a little bit stronger too. The guy is super strong, and the way he got up from those takedowns from Eric Gonzalez in his last fight, I was like, dude, this is not very good technique to get up. But he's just brute strength, gets up out of it. So I want to fade Trevor Peek because the hype around him is probably going to push him to be a little bit more pricey. 8 KOs. All of his wins are by KO. 6 in the first round, 2 in the second round. And obviously coming off of big performances in his debut. But Chepe might just be tough enough to stick around and make it interesting. If it makes it past round 2, goes into round 3, Chepe might be able to take over because Trevor Peek's going to go for it right away in the first round. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Trevor Peek, there's going to come a time to fade him. I don't know if it's yet. I don't know if it's this week, but the style he has, the brawling, he's going to eat shots to give him. Like you said, he uses a lot of energy to get up when he gets taken down too. Like that engine burns hot every second he's in the octagon. So if somebody can just take him past the first 1.5 rounds, like it's going to get really interesting to see what he's got left. Because if that power starts going away, I mean, what else does he really have to offer? I mean, we haven't seen anything else yet. Maybe he does have, the grappling and he can get takedowns and, do some good work on the ground, but he never has to use it. He's just flatlining everybody. I mean, the hammer fist he was hitting Eric Gonzalez with was incredible. Like I've never seen anybody use that technique to put somebody out. I mean, he literally came like over his head, over the top, and hit him straight on. It was super wild to watch. But it's hard to tell here with Chepe what's going to happen. Like, can he eat those shots from Trevor Peek? I mean, he's been knocked out 3 times in his career. Like, regards, I mean, it has been to guys, like you said, at the UFC level and some good fighters at the UFC level. But he's just got to hang around because Peek's going to come out and try to take your head off from the get-go. So if Chepe can just survive and see what happens as the fight goes on, he's got a shot. He's definitely got a shot. Everyone's calling Trevor Peek the lock of the week, but I'm telling you, there's going to come a time where if something happens and you think, holy shit, this guy might not be ready for this level quite yet. Like he's got to get some technicality in his striking going or something because this only takes you so far. It really does. For a pick, I think Trevor does pull it off here, but each fight, man, it's going to come closer and closer to being time to fade Trevor Peek. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I really want to fade him here, but I think that head is just so damn durable. Like he got hit 60 times in the first round in his Contender Series fight against Malik Lewis, and then came back and won in the second round by KO. So I mean, the head is durable. I think he's durable, and he hits pretty damn hard, and it's tough to like counter him too because it's so awkward. And you just don't know what the hell he's going to do next. So it's like it's tough to like counter his shots, and the pressure of him is tough too. So if I'm Chepe, like, I mean, Chepe is not like a big dude either. So I mean, I already explained that. Like he's not a big dude, so I don't know if he could be able to like just take him down and then keep him down, or like chain wrestle him at all, or literally. So like it's a great matchup as far as like a fight for Trevor Peek, like to make it exciting, because I think Chepe will probably go in there and just throw hands. And will it work out for him? Probably not. Like it hasn't really worked out well for Trevor Peek's opponents. So yeah, I don't. Lock of the week is a little insane to me.
Oh, it's wild, bro. I've seen so many people.
You can't lock anything up with Trevor Peek. Like you got to bet on that and just like have fun with it. But yeah, I mean, for the sake of the show, I'm gonna go with Trevor Peek because he also follows me on Instagram. Shout out Trevor Peek. But Chepe, he's always game as well.
I can't wait to see the first and second round knockout props.
Yeah, I will definitely.
It's gonna be fun.
Definitely be cheesing those. Could be
I'll be dabbling
spot for Chepe. If you like Chepe, maybe wait till after round 1. Featherweight bout here. Jamal Emmers coming at -162 against Jack Jenkins, +162 for him. Over under 2.5 rounds, -145 for the over, +145 for the under. 5-0 in his last 5 for Jack Jenkins, coming off his debut win against Don Shanis. Jamal Emmers hit Hussein Ashkabov with the fraud check of the century. Derailed that small little hype train. The 23-0 Russian guy coming in and taking the loss to Jamal Emmers. But in this one, Emmers versus Jenkins, who are you thinking?
Man, I love Jamal Emmers as a fighter. His last fight, he looked great. Like you said, fraud check, though. It's hard to put a lot of stock into that because was it Rajabov? Ashkabov. God, there's so many OVs anymore around the UFC. But he looked really good in that fight, and he did exactly what he had to do wherever the fight went. Like he showed he's got great striking. He's good on the ground. He's good with the wrestling. Like he'll land takedowns. In the fight against Chikadze. I mean, he was able to lift, elevate, and get Chikadze down. It didn't really hold him down all that long, but I mean, the takedown ability is definitely there. And that was a pretty damn close fight. I thought he beat Chikadze in that one. And anybody who can go 3 rounds with Chikadze and not get knocked out or make it a split decision is pretty impressive. Look at the numbers of that fight. Blew me away. Jamal Emmers, 2 takedowns. Jamal Emmers, 54 strikes to Chikadze's 38. So he can strike with the high-level strikers. He can grapple. Against who was it? Pat Sabatini got that heel hook, but I'm pretty sure I didn't watch that one back. But if my memory serves me right, I'm pretty sure Jamal Emmers was in a pretty damn good position until Pat was like a wizard with it and got his heel. Overall, I just think Jamal Emmers is a great all-around fighter. Now, with if you look at Jack Jenkins in his last fight, those leg kicks are so nasty and they're hard to defend for anybody, especially a guy like Emmers who is longer and who hops in and out. Like if Jack Jenkins can just time those leg kicks, he's going to rack up damage to anybody. He reminds me of Gaethje a lot when he's standing on the feet. He's a train wreck waiting to happen at times. In his last fight against Sheamus, he hits too hard, and yeah, he didn't get the knockout there, but man, he was putting hands to face and making it hard for Sheamus to get any kind of offense off back to him. And also Jack Jenkins will mix in the wrestling as well. So if he can do that to Jamal Emmers, hats off to him. I think he's definitely legit if he can get past Jamal Emmers here. But it's going to be a tough fight for him. I think it really is. For me, it all comes down to those leg kicks. If he can't get them going on Jamal, I think that's his only chance to really take some of those weapons away from Jamal. So right now I'm leaning Jamal Emmers on my prediction here. I think he is a very good fighter.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way too because he's so well rounded. Like he showed a lot of that in the fight with Ashkabov. Like he kind of beat him everywhere the fight was. Like on the feet, Ashkabov was pretty explosive and fast, and then after the first round, he just didn't have anything left because Emmers didn't care about any of it. Like he just brushed it off and used his own striking as well to get some good shots in. But the 2 losses in the UFC, as you touched on it, like they're not terrible by any means. They're actually like pretty respectable. And then I always got to point out he's got to win over Corey Sandhagen by decision in 2017 in the LFA. So
that's impressive. If you can beat Sandhagen by decision for 3 rounds, I understand if you clip him or something and you get that off chance that you found a finish on him, but to go 3 rounds is impressive.
Yeah, very, very impressive. The only thing that scares me is like the leg kicks, like you said, because Jamal Emmers is he's 5'10", 74-inch reach. So I mean, he's a long dude, but he's a skinny dude. And if those leg kicks start adding up, it could be a long night for him. And Jack Jenkins does have the takedown ability. But yeah, just overall, I think Jamal Emmers is the better fighter. So I got to go with him. I think he'll have a decent game plan going in because everybody knows Jack Jenkins is a leg kicker. Like everyone fucking knows that. So like if you come out and he's just landing leg kicks at will, that tells me you did like no research on your opponent. So I would expect he comes in here with a good game plan to defend against those leg kicks. And maybe he goes to the ground early and just looks for his own offensive wrestling so he doesn't have to deal with that at all. I could see it happening. He's pretty solid there as well. So I'll go with Jamal Emmers as well. But Jack Jenkins, not a bad dog spot.
No.
Flyweight bout, Tatsuro Taira coming in at -310 against Clayton Rodriguez, +310 for Rodriguez, over under 2.5 rounds, over under 2.5 rounds, -160 for the over, +160 for the under. Tatsuro Taira, another undefeated fighter on this card, 5-0 in his last 5, 13-0 in his career, and 4-1 in Clayton Rodriguez last 5. He got the win against Shannon Ross's last time out, UFC Perth. And then his loss in his debut against CJ Vergara, split decision there. Tatsuro Taira made pretty easy work against CJ Vergara. He's got 3 fights in the UFC, 2 submissions, 1 decision, back-to-back submissions for him. Both are one by armbar, one by triangle armbar. I mean, the ground game of Tatsuro Taira is pretty nasty. I'm not gonna lie. Like watching that guy work for submissions, like stay patient at his age. He's 23 years old. Like stay patient on the ground and wait for those submissions to present themselves. It's pretty nasty. But on the feet, I mean, he's not terrible on the feet, but
No.
the dude is like he's kind of like a Jamal Emmers build. Like he's long and skinny, and Clayton Rodriguez could take advantage of him on the feet, but that's a big if because it's tough to like keep it there with Tatsuro Taira. I mean, he usually gets you down, and once you're down, like you're not getting back up. So I think Tatsuro Taira is probably the rightful favorite. It's a bit chalky for me, minus 310, because Rodriguez is pretty talented. But I look at this one, like if it hits the ground, I don't know that it'd be like an instant sub, but I think if he gets it to the ground, he should be able to put in some good work over the course of like 2 to 3 minutes. Maybe look for a submission or two and rack up some control time. But yeah, if it's on the feet, it's anybody's fight. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely anybody's fight on the feet. Tyra definitely not bad on the feet, but I think you definitely got to give the advantage to Rodriguez here. I mean, what Rodriguez threw 14 strikes against Shannon Ross in the span of about when he got that sequence going, it was like 10 seconds, and he just unloaded, got the finish. So he's dangerous on the feet. He throws a lot of kicks too, to the body, to the head. He'll mix it up. The one thing I worry about with that in this fight is Tyra catching a leg and then getting him down from there. And that's the last place you want to be in this fight with Tyra is on the ground, in my opinion. But Tyra at the same time, like offensively wrestling and trying to get fights to the ground, he's not like your average wrestler. Like he does it in different ways. Like maybe he'll catch a leg and then drag you down, or try to get like a body lock and just use his weight to kind of trip you or fall over on you. Like he's not shooting double legs and single legs and getting those traditional takedowns. I mean, he's only got a 35% takedown average accuracy, and that's against CJ Vergara, who was taken down twice against Clayton. Carlos Candelario and Jesus Aguilar. And Aguilar, I will say, did have Tatsuro Taira pretty deep in that guillotine.
Yeah.
And it took him a few minutes to get out of it too. If you were betting and laying the chalk on Tyra in that fight, because I'm pretty sure he was like minus like 800 or something crazy.
Yep.
Maybe not quite that big, but it was a crazy number. You're probably sweating a little bit there. And this is definitely a step up in competition for him in Clydeson Rodriguez. If it stays on the feet, it'll get super, super interesting. Hopefully, if you're betting on the dog here, he just keeps it upright. That's all you have to do here is pray this thing does not go to the ground. I would not lay the chalk on Tyra though, because he is so young, and at the end of the day, he's not fighting too high level of guys by any means. So I want to see more from him before I'm going to put him in a parlay at this price or anything like that. I'm definitely not paying the money line though. He's going to be my pick to win, but nothing going out on him right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't lay the chalk either. It's pretty dang chalky. For flyweights too, young flyweights, there's always that unpredictability with flyweights too. So Clayton Rodriguez though, pictures with Charles Du Bronx on his Instagram, so maybe a little something to get behind there. But for the pick, I'll go with Tyra as well. A middleweight bout, Cody Brundage, minus 125 for Brundage, plus 125 for Cedric Dumas. Over under 1.5 rounds. Minus 115 for the over, plus 115 for the under. Cedric Dumas, a debut to forget. The loss to Josh Fremd. I mean, he looked like he got hit a couple times on the feet and he just lost all of his confidence and got guillotine choked in the second round. Looked like he didn't really want to be in there. But he's looking to bounce back here, fighting in Florida again. That's where he's from. And I think on the feet, he should definitely have the advantage. But Cody Brundage, pretty decent wrestler. A couple or 3 wins by submission. Could get it there. But I'm looking at this one like probably a decent bounce back spot for Cedric Dumas. I mean, Brundage is taking this one on short notice as well. Dumas was supposed to fight Soriano. Brundage stepping in on about 7 to 8 days notice. But yeah, I can't really get behind Cody Brundage. Like the skills are like okay. The fight IQ is pretty bad. Like his losses in the UFC, Nick Maximov, who's no longer in the UFC, Olashaychuk he got just destroyed on with some ground and pound, and then he got choked out by Rodolfo Vieira. Like he pulled a guillotine on Rodolfo Vieira and basically just gave him an arm triangle after that, which was pretty crazy. And then he nearly got knocked out by Dolce Longiambula, and then just pulled a guillotine out of nowhere, and it worked out for him. So I don't know. I can't really get behind either guy too much, but I would go with Dumas. If it stays on the feet, I think he can knock him out. What do you think?
Yeah, it's one of those weird situations because I feel like a lot of people are going to watch Cedric Dumas's debut and then try to fade him here again. But I think there's a lot of factors that went into that loss. I think Dumas was way overly confident in himself in that one. Thought he was going to run through Josh Fremd. He just watched Tresean Gore submit him with that nasty guillotine. And I think he thought it was going to be a walk in the park. And he got in there, he got cracked once and thought, shit, this is not what I was expecting at all. And then from there, Josh Fremd just kind of started doing whatever he wanted. Got the takedown, got him tired. He got him, he had all the control in the world. He was doing whatever he wanted. So I think this is a decent bounce back spot for Cedric. You look at Cody, he does get takedowns. That's the one thing in this fight that I think if he wants to win, you can't really mess with Cedric on the feet, especially having the chin that you do, being knocked out a couple of times the way you have. Like if he wants to win, I think he's got to go for the takedowns and take his chances on the ground. Because Cedric does have subs and he does have knockouts, but it's not like these, submissions where it's really slick or he, pulled off insane triangles. It's more like gets his opponents hurt. He's way longer than guys will find the neck at some point. So if Brundage can take him down, get him a little tired, take some pop out of his shots, he definitely has a chance. But Cedric I see a lot of people fading him again and then him coming out and looking like a slightly different fighter here. Maybe more technical, maybe more composed, and picking his shots a little better. Maybe not rushing in and just emptying the gas tank trying to knock people out. I think Cedric Dumas, if he has a good camp around him, will learn a lot from his mistakes in that Josh Fremd fight and hopefully turn into a decent fighter because he is fun to watch when he's on the feet. Like the guy is strong, powerful, throws a lot of crazy shots. So if he can just tone it down a little bit, dial it in, sharpen those skills, he could definitely find the chin of Brundage here, especially with Brundage's track record of getting knocked out. But at the same time, Brundage found the chin of Tresean Gore. If he can just crack Cedric and get him hurt once, I think he could definitely take advantage of it and find a finish as well. But for the pick, I'm going to go Dumas again. I did it in his first fight and it bit me in the ass, but I'm going to pray that he learned a lot from his losses.
Yeah, I think if you're Brundage, you just got to go in there and be aggressive. Like force Dumas to be uncomfortable again because that's just like what it looked like happened in his debut. Like he faced Josh Fremd, who was like a pretty similar stature to him. Like he's a longer guy, taller guy for the division, and it looked like Dumas was like, I'm not used to this. So if you're Brundage, I would just be aggressive and shoot some takedowns early. He's not really like big on shooting takedowns. He's kind of like content to throw hands. But in this spot, if he turns it into a kickboxing match, I don't see it going too well for him. Unless he can catch him with something. But yeah, I'll go with Dumas as well. And that wraps up the 14 fights. To recap on UFC Jacksonville, and that's all the picks. Obviously, once again, if you want the bets, hit the link down in the description to join the double leg premium. Going for 5 straight weeks of profit for me going into UFC Jacksonville. Hopefully, we can stay hot.
Coming out of a slump for me.
Yeah, hopefully
straight to the top.
You can get out of your slump. But yeah, get in there to get all of our bets. And if you just want this week's, you can wait until Friday. They'll be available then. But I think the premium membership is a better deal because you're getting 4 weeks for the price of 2. So get in on that.
In the Discord as well.
Yeah, get in on the Discord. They've been giving out picks throughout the week as well. So yeah, good stuff going on there. But other than that, hopefully it's some fun fights. Hopefully we don't lose any. UFC on ABC, early start time, 12 p.m. Eastern, so noon Eastern, 11 p.m. Central. So make sure you don't miss that. But other than that, we can get out of here. At the double leg on the medias to stay up to date with everything. At HeyJai Picks on the medias for me. Where can they find you?
TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at the Parlay MMA.
All right. After this, hopefully we're recapping some good fights and some good dubs. The double leg